Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we are reviewing The Conjuring: The Last Rites, directed by Michael Chaves, starring Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson, Mia Tomlinson, and Ben Hardy, along with the ensemble surrounding the family in need of the Warrens' expertise. This movie covers the true story of the Warrens' final case involving a demon with a dark personal connection to their family. And this will of course be a spoiler review for the final Conjuring film, so if you haven't seen it, and if you are a fan of these characters in particular, go check it out, come back, and let's get into the film.
Once we start, there's no going back. Anything can happen.
And let me just say right off the bat that if this movie didn't constantly remind me of why I love these characters so much, it would have fallen so flat for me. When it comes to all the films in the Conjuring universe, the ones that star Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are by far the best ones. And it's largely thanks to how well James Wan weaved the characterization of the Warrens with the overall ghost story each film was trying to tell. The first film is a perfect example of this, with the second Conjuring working a little bit less, but the upgrade in style from Wan elevated that film in other areas. The problem with the Michael Chaves directed Conjuring films lie in a couple different areas, which I will get into in a bit here, but the one thing that stayed consistent between the Wan films and the Chaves films is the Warrens. This film opens with the best scene in the film as we watch a young Ed and Lorraine Warren face off against their very first demon, who has attached itself to an antique mirror. And no, it's not the same one from Oculus, but I understand if you confuse the two. Lorraine is also pregnant with Judy at this time, and her connecting with this mirror sparks her to go into labor. This leads to a very tense scene as she gives birth, with this demon clinging behind a lintel, which offered some chilling visuals, but what makes this sequence so good is the balance of the scares with the emotion. Judy is stillborn in this moment, and the shock, trauma, and sadness of this all is conveyed perfectly through every actor on screen, and I have to give an immense amount of props to Madison, Lawlor, and Orion Smith for absolutely nailing playing a younger Ed and Lorraine Warren in this moment. I genuinely think this is the most emotional I got during any of these Conjuring films. This starts the emotional through line for this story, and its focus on Judy, which I found to be one of its most effective storylines throughout the entirety of the film. Judy is played by Mia Tomlinson this time around, and her character is growing more in tune with her psychic abilities passed down by her mother. She is also engaged with Ben Hardy's Tony in this, which adds another layer of new blood coming into the family, and all the dynamics here work incredibly well. The mother-daughter story of Lorraine trying to have Judy suppress her visions leads to a great moment at the end of the film where she empowers her to face her demons, and the father and future stepson story between Ed and Tony added so many great comedic moments throughout the entirety of the film, but Ed telling him the story of the minutes he believed his daughter was gone as a baby added a ton of emotion when Judy was hung at the end of the film and is thought to have once again been taken from them. And when it comes to bringing in new actors for these roles, I thought that both actors who played Judy and Tony in this film fit right in. I liked them as a couple, and I was really glad that the film spent the amount of time that it did to make us care for them just as much as Ed and Lorraine care for them in this film. Other returning characters include Steve Coulter as Father Gordon, who has had a nice little through line throughout the entirety of this franchise, and his character was sadly killed off in this film, but it did come with one of the better scare sequences in this film. And again, this movie works best when it pairs these scares with the emotional beats, so his death bringing the Warrens back into the fold was very effective. Annabelle, of course, makes her cameo appearance as she tends to do in all of these Conjuring movies, despite her involvement here making no real sense besides, I guess, giving some recognizable fan service. I did enjoy her two sequences in this film as well. I didn't know I wanted a scene with Judy being chased down by a giant Annabelle doll, but we got it, and I had a ton of fun with it. But this film does bite off a lot more than it can chew. Every Conjuring movie needs a family in need of the Warrens' help, and in this film we have the SMURL family. The SMURLs are a large family of, I believe, 8 members who all live in a small house in Pennsylvania. The grandparents of the family gift the same antique mirror from the opening scene to the SMURL daughter, who I thought would have much more involvement in the story moving forward, but sadly I think all of these characters are severely underdeveloped. We do get some fun scares with a creepy baby doll, a ghost blowing out a candle as seen in a creepy videotape, an axe-wielding slasher ghost, and a phone cable being pulled from the hands of the mother, which is probably the most similar type of scare to the OG Conjuring film. When it comes to all these scare sequences with these SMURLs, they are for the most part fairly well crafted, but they all tend to end with us cutting to a CGI ghost face smiling at the camera, and that became very old very quickly. The most effective scares in that first Conjuring film were the ones where you didn't really get to see anything. The scare with Joey King looking to the dark corner of the room, saying that somebody was standing there, was one of the most effective scenes in that entire film, and if the ghost came running out of the corner directly towards the camera, I think that too much of that tension that was built between this poor family and their haunting would have been released. This film doesn't let tension build in that way.
It's standing right behind you.
there always has to be some sort of payoff at the end of each scene, which does deflate a lot of that tension for me here. Top all that off with the SMURL family getting very little screen time, I just never really got to a point of caring for them. There are even some plot points that are completely forgotten about when it comes to this family. At the peak of the SMURL's haunting, one of the daughters begins coughing up glass and throwing up blood everywhere. It was horrific to watch and a genuinely effective moment as it shows the consequences for these girls attempting to get rid of this haunted mirror, but we never really go back to this. The father was a skeptic until this moment, and with his daughter's life seemingly being in immense peril, you'd think that we get to see the aftermath of this moment, but the next time we see them, they're already speaking to the media and the daughter is entirely fine. A similar thing happens to the grandmother, who is seen being taken away by an ambulance and she just never returns. I didn't think that she died in this moment, but I guess she did. I mean, the fact that I'm incredibly unsure about the potential death of one of these family members is quite a glaring flaw. And most disappointingly, when we do get to the final act and we finally get to see the Warren family living with the SMURLs as we've seen them do for all the other families they've helped in this franchise, the SMURLs just end up being background characters with nothing more to do besides running out of the house and watching from the rain. This haunted mirror essentially uses this family as a means to an end in order to get to Judy, and like I already said, I do like Judy's involvement and the emotionality her peril brought to the characters I already love, but it came at the expense of all the other characters who could have probably been cut entirely from this movie without anybody really noticing their absence. This film also continues the trend of telling the true story of these hauntings, but we've gone so far from realism at this point that it is truly laughable. This film honestly makes the first Conjuring look like a documentary, but I'll leave the investigation of what is real and what was entirely fabricated up to channels like Heavy Spoilers, which has a great breakdown of the original Conjuring movie, which will no doubt ruin your perception of the realism of the Conjuring universe. But the last thing I'll say about this movie is that despite the underdeveloped B-plot and sillier moments within the scares, this movie does succeed as a finale for the Conjuring franchise. Ed's heart problems carried on here from the last film, and you can tell that they have reached a point of no return. They need to retire, and it feels genuinely earned. We say goodbye to Father Gordon, Judy is all grown up, and even her wedding at the very end of the film is filled with cameos like the mother and daughter from the first film, the main girl from the second film, the son from the third film, and even James Wan himself, and I'm sure I even missed some people. There were so many people at this wedding, I'm sure it is just filled with cameos. The story of the Warrens is wrapped up in a nice little bow, and it was honestly really sad to say goodbye to them. However, I do unfortunately have to be an advocate for IP-driven storytelling by saying that they should totally do a prequel series about the Warrens. Each episode can be a new, smaller case with simple hauntings, with an overarching story of a demon leading to every finale. Cast the same young actors that we saw at the opening scene of this film, and I will be there day one.
It's the first one that we ever encountered. We were young. We were scared. We ran away.
But those are just going to be my thoughts on The Conjuring Last Rites. How would you rank this among all the other Conjuring universe films? For me, I think it'd go The Conjuring 2, Annabelle Creation, Conjuring Last Rites, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, Annabelle Comes Home, The Nun 2, The Nun, The Curse of La Llorona, and last and very least, Annabelle. And as always, if you enjoyed this review, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this one. Next week will be the release of The Long Walk, which I may or may not have already seen, and I cannot wait to talk about that film, so definitely keep an eye out for a review here on the channel as well. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next one.